I'm curious, like, I don't know if I'm just in a unique position as far as where I am, but I mean, as far as, is there some sort of agreement with all the different chambers? So I live in York County. So there's the York County Chamber, and then there's the Greater Williamsburg, and then there's the Peninsula Chamber, and then there's the Hampton Roads Chamber. So it's like, not that I have four chambers of commerce all, hit me up all the time, but at the same time, it's still four different chambers of commerce. What's do you all talk about that amongst the different chambers, or I'm just curious what, from your level, what the discussion is, or are those memberships recognized throughout the different chamber network?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is similar to like an affiliate opportunity. We don't have affiliate memberships per se between the different chambers. We all do run completely separate as far as our membership and the benefits we provide. I think where we work best with each other, and this is due in large credit to Brian Stevens, who's our president and CEO, Bob McKenna, Terry up in Williamsburg, their willingness to work together more from the standpoint of the issues that we're working on, whether it's things like the 757 recovery and resilience, even well before COVID even hit. When I first came on board, Brian was already working collaboratively with those chambers about issues that affect the entire 757 business community. So that whether it's through the advocacy, whether it's through some of the outreach that we're doing, that we are doing that in a collaborative manner. I think, especially in Hampton Roads, I haven't been in a chamber environment outside of the Hampton Roads community other than to meet some of my counterparts. So I can't speak for them, but I know at least in this community, we have a really good working relationship with each other in that we kind of know who we are and who we're trying to serve. So while there are some businesses, for instance, that are based on the peninsula and are members of our chamber because they do business on the south side, they work and partner with different organizations locally. I'm not necessarily up there trying to purge all of Bob McKenna's membership so they can be part of us, and he's not doing the verse down here, and Bob's not trying to do it in Williamsburg. I mean, we have what is a pretty cordial relationship between the different chambers, and as such, we try to communicate with each other as much as possible so that we are serving all of our members to the best ability that we can. And it goes back to Doug Smith talks a lot about this adage that Hampton Roads has never been a very collaborative community. And honestly, for decades, we really weren't, whether that was at the municipal level or even through some of the organizations. But I think that narrative in the last 5 years, even well before COVID, I think has changed dramatically. The fact that we're even talking today, I mean, Zack, you've been on my podcast. I'm talking to you guys. I work with a lot of the local business associations, whether it's the Virginia Beach Hotel Association at the oceanfront, or whether it's Central Business District, Portsmouth Partnership. I mean, the days of us staying in our own little silos with our own little memberships and somehow trying to truly serve the Hampton Roads business community while we're staying in our own little silos, I think is an old adage. And it's something that anyone who continues to do that, I think, is just simply falling behind, because the collaboration is just too strong right now between this community for us not to continue in that same direction.
I think from a leadership standpoint, I mean, for the Hampton Roads Chamber, I mean, if there was some sort of program to really show regionalism and take it to the next level, I mean, if you had some sort of affiliate program where you paid an X amount of dollars, but each different chamber that you want to be part of gave like a 10% thing, and then the money kind of funneled downward, just to really show that unified approach. I mean, it just that would be really cool to see. That would be my little plug, just because I think that there's a lot of businesses that I'm sure have multiple chamber memberships, and to streamline that and to have a universal front to say, hey, we are leading this. People want regionalism, and we're gonna, we hear it, and we're acting on it. That'd be really neat to explore.
Yeah, well, I'll never say never, because I mean, we were saying never about a lot of things. I mean, 3-5 years ago, and a lot's changed just in that time. So yeah, I mean, you just never know. There's opportunities to come about all the time, and I
then there
think that's the
was
key, is having leadership that has an open mind to things
yeah.
like that.
And there it was a positive first step in terms of like the Recovery Resilience Task Force, where the Peninsula Chamber with the Hampton Roads Chamber and Greater Williamsburg, signing that agreement and making it very public in the sense of, hey, we're unified on this. We're not going to be duplicating effort. What one chamber says is backed by the other two. We're all in together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've been in the business community for over a decade now. And as I really look back and reflect, I think that the infighting, the lack of collaboration that people talk about is actually BS. And it's actually not at the actual lower level, where people aren't like, oh my God, I live in Chesapeake and I do this and this. It's like, it's just this fight that is continued that makes no sense. And it's just something, it's like a scapegoat. Oh, the reason why we aren't here is because we haven't worked with this thing. Right? We're really no different than any other region. Oh, we're a cul-de-sac. Really, Miami's a pretty big cul-de-sac, and they seem to be doing just fine, right? There's always an excuse. Oh, we're more transient than any other place. Actually, Washington, D.C. is more transient, right? We're not that dense. So to me, it's like, it's always been, and I've been on both. I've been on that side where I've been like, we need to collaborate more, because I when you get into a community, you're like, well, what are other people saying? Okay, well, that makes sense. But then as I really look at it, it's like, there really isn't, in my opinion, a lack of collaboration. It's just been, we are telling this narrative that is absolute gibberish. That's nonsense. Like, I've seen like big time articles in big time publications, not local. And some of the quotes from people would literally be like, oh yeah, we have a problem. We historically have talked about fighting with this city because we couldn't get something done that's in your backyard. It's like, hold on a second. That narrative that you're telling the world is the most ridiculous thing that you could be telling. Here you have an opportunity to get in front of millions of people, because that publication is going to be viewed by millions of people. And you're talking about random collaboration issues that mean absolutely nothing to this. To me, it's storytelling, it's narrative, it's non-issue. Every city across the country and probably across the world has very similar issues like this. We just allow the narrative to control it instead of actually doing things about it. And so to me, it's nonsense. I live in Chesapeake now. My business is in Norfolk. It means no difference. I'll go to Virginia Beach. Tim lives in Yorktown. Who cares? It really means absolutely nothing. And I continue to tell people, hey, by the way, you telling other people this thing is irrelevant. It's an irrelevant data point. And let's just tell the narrative that we want. Right. And I think that's the story that needs to get out, instead of, oh, now we're collaborating. Who cares? We don't need to say that we're even collaborating at this point. Just do your job and tell the positive story that's going to put us in a better front. Not, oh, we're collaborating now. Because that's what I still continue to hear in these organizations is, we're collaborating now. Who cares? The business owner doesn't care that you're collaborating. The employee that's working there, the teammates don't care. The person who owns a house in different places, no one cares. No one cares about that. It's high level gibberish. And instead,
and I'm sure it's the same too in Texas. If with membership, you get people who complain, oh, I don't get anything out of being a member of the chamber, and it's like, well, what did you put into it to get and not get anything out of it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
but
and
imagine if instead of talking about, oh, we're collaborating now, that narrative went away because it's irrelevant, in my opinion. And we just talked about the things that people wanted to see. We're wasting opportunities. We're wasting space on a story that isn't going to help move things to the next level. And we need to be telling the story of what we want things to be happening, not some randomness. Done.
Well, I will say in 30 years of being in the business community, I think part of it is there's a generational aspect to it. I think within certain generations, the non-collaborative narrative is more anecdotal than it is standard. And I think the younger generations, it's, to your point, Zach, it's not really that much of a conversation. I mean, my kids don't see boundaries. They know they live in Virginia Beach per se, but they don't necessarily see a boundary between when they leave Virginia Beach and go to Norfolk to go do something, or if they're going to go out to Chesapeake to go hang out. I mean, the biggest boundaries they ever saw was the fact that the school systems happened to be labeled for a different school or a different city. So I do think, to your point, Zach, that the more that next generation continues to move into leadership, the less the collaborative narrative is going to be brought into it, and it's just going to be an assumptive. That's just how we work as a region. And by the time my kids are in our positions within leadership in this community, I do agree with you that the collaborative narrative isn't going to be brought up as much. It's just going to be how they do business on a day-to-day.
Yeah. So even from a celebration standpoint, so I believe it was Homes.com got acquired by CoStar for about $155 million recently, right? So if I was pushing the marketing behind this region, I don't care what city that they're in, I'd be like, yo, by the way, you could start a business in Norfolk, start a business and hashtag the 757, and you can sell it for $152 million within a couple of years. That's it, right? It's to promote the positive things that you want people to see that are going to help push things to the next level. Hey, by the way, we have 35,000 people here at Something in the Water with a guy who, is homemade and has done these amazing things, right? Yep. That's it. Only tell those really positive stories, because then people will start to see that when these publications are picking that up, and they're like, oh my goodness, I need to be there.
Yeah.
And I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, with Something in the Water, I mean, gosh, it's been a couple of years now, but I think Airbnbs were selling out in Williamsburg. Yeah, I mean, everybody benefited from that. It wasn't just Virginia Beach. I mean, it was everybody, every hotel, every Airbnb, everybody, all the way up to Williamsburg and beyond. So it definitely it's happening, and it's just.
Absolutely.
I've been directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, StartWheel eliminates that pain point, because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.